Hey guys, Debo here. This is my duty finder run of Final Call of Bahamut. This is turn 10 versus Imdugud. So it's like I'm gonna do good. I'm gonna do good. But pretty straightforward fight. If you're looking for information that explains everything for this fight for everybody, for everybody's position for DPS. There's other videos that do that. I'm just going to talk about this from the tank's perspective. Blah blah blah. The tank's perspective. Let me just go ahead and get into this. And the first thing I'm going to explain is that the reason why you have the A and the B marked is that what happens is ads are going to spawn one above, one below. It's going to be called the son and the daughter of Imdugud. It spawns on two sets of ads spawn on the first on the left side, two sets spawn on the right side. The first ad phase, you're just going to produce one set on the left side, one set on the right side. You cannot let these different mobs touch. You cannot bring them together because they'll tether together and they'll just do a massive amount of damage. Also, they do massive AoE in front of them and back of them, so you're going to be positioning them a certain way. The main way I usually do it is I usually end up being the main tank. I tell them I take A side. And that basically means is that I'm going to be tanking the boss, so when we go to ad phase, I'm going to pick up the ads on A. And then the off tank picks up the ads on B. So when that happens, it's pretty straightforward. Get aggro on the targets, face them. I'll face my mobs facing north. He'll face his mobs facing south, just so that the AoE cones won't hit each other and people have a little bit more room to breathe with. That happens in the first phase. The second phase, the same ad spawn again. It's nothing different. The only difference is that A ad spawn and B ad spawn, we're going to use a limit break. Well, Debo, why we're going to use a limit break in the phase 2? Well, the phase 2 of the ads, an additional set of ads will appear in the middle, at the top and at the bottom. So the reason why we use a limit break is to do a lot of damage to A, or whatever, how you guys, your kill structure is, to burn down the ads very quickly. So in the second phase, I want to do the same exact thing I do. It's just tank the boss, pick up the ads, DPS them down, then go back to damaging the boss. Second phase, pretty much same thing. When you get to the second phase ads, you stop from DPSing the boss, you run up to where the ads are, you pick up the first set of ads. They'll drop a limit break immediately. We'll burn to A, then everybody will go to B, and while everybody's going to B, I'll pick up the additional ads in the middle. I will bring them towards the top, or you can bring them towards the bottom, however you want to do it. And that's pretty much about it. And then after they finish their ads, and they'll kill the additional ads, and then we'll get back to the boss, and then it's the final phase. You want to get 2 ad phases. It's very simple. The hardest part is maybe picking up the additional ads if that's your job. But practicing on a regular basis won't make it too bad. But that's enough talking for me. But so now you know the main theme that the tanks have to deal with is the ads. Outside of that, it's everything else is pretty straightforward. So we got a ready check. Positioning for this fight, I usually like to come in and shield lob. I usually like to take a couple steps back, do my little opener, and this is where you want to tank him for all the fight in the inner circle. Makes your life a lot easier, and it makes your positioning a lot easier. So just right off the bat, that makes your life a lot easier if you just tank him right there. So I'll make sure I establish my threat right now. I think I'm trying to see here. I don't think, no, Jiggy Peppers were good. That was my buddy who queued up at the same time as a warrior. Sometimes you gotta be careful if you're tanking as a paladin, as your warrior, because things kind of go crazy. I think we missed the first mechanic here. I'm just gonna rewind it back just a little bit. The main thing that you need to watch for if you're main tanking as a tank is that he's gonna do these critical attacks, critical claw or something like that. We'll see it in a second. You want to pop a global cooldown. So the spike flail, that's just something they have to deal with. You just avoid it. I mean, that's on them. Critical rip. You want to pop a cooldown every time you see it. I think I missed this one because I'm bad, but usually you want to pop a cooldown. But usually it's not too big of a deal because you can heal through it, but you usually want to pop a cooldown versus that. And what he's going to do is he's actually going to do a charge ability. And you got to make sure you're away from before he charges. Otherwise, that explosion will kill you. And what he does is, the charge is a mechanic that needs to be split between all the players. The off tank needs to be the first one hit by the charge, and then you need a couple more people behind him to help him absorb the damage. If that doesn't happen, everybody dies. Pretty simple. You're an off tank, you see it charging, you always have to be in front. You always have to be in front. Now, there's some situations where that it changes, but that's how it goes. So after getting him to 85%, he's going to do electro charge, and that lets you know to get over to where you need to go, where your ads are at. I do believe, I don't know why, we both faced our ads to the bottom, which it actually ended up working okay, but I should be facing mine to the north. But I have to kind of start looking into this and seeing what happens, because it wasn't too bad. But the DPS always, like I said, the kill order is A side, then B side. You kill the daughter first, because the daughter makes it so that she casts praise, which is a healer mechanic. They got to deal with it, so we just kill the daughter first and followed by the son. I would advise switching over to the son about 50 to 25% when the daughter's down to that HP. Switch over to son and start building even additional threat. The way I open up when the ad phase comes out, Circle of Scorn with flashes. Circle of Scorn, as soon as they appear, flash, and then I start walking backwards, or however direction you're doing, you start walking backwards to stack them up, and you just keep spamming flash. You usually need about 3 flashes. And as soon as the mobs are both lined up perfectly while walking backwards, however you want to set it up, that's when I start putting damage on the daughter. And that's just kind of how it's been working out for me, and it's been doing fine. After you kill both sets of ads, you go back and DPS the boss once you get a certain amount of damage. That's about it. It goes back into its regular phase mode. So we already seen the charge mechanic. We've already seen how the ads spawn. Now in the second phase, he does an additional attack where he's going to start dropping this heated lightning, I do believe it's called. Yeah, heat lightning. And it hits 3 people. It doesn't matter because it will never hit you. If you're an off tank, you need to watch out for it. So when you have him on focus, just make sure that when he does heat lightning, you basically stand away, because it'll hit other people, and what that does is give you an invulnerability up. The way this affects you as a tank is as follows. If the off tank gets a heat lightning before he charges, that off tank, you have to do a tank swap. So you would run through the boss and take the first charge, or like the warrior didn't get it at this point. He just basically did what he normally did. But if the warrior did, let's say, get heat lightning, you would have to do a tank swap, and you just simply do that. You watch for the second heat lightning. It's always the second heat lightning that's followed up with a charge. So I look for heat lightning, and then I see, oh, okay, the off tank got hit. What I would have done is ran straight through the boss, and the off tank would have provoked, and then the boss would have charged, turn around and hit stat and crackle hist, or hit basically Jiggy Pepper with the AoE spell, and then you just go back to the front and regain aggro or retaunt off of them. I mean, that's pretty much about it. But the beautiful thing is, if you have a warrior has a cooldown that they call it HG for short. I don't know the name of it, but I always just tell them HG. I joke about that. And what the cool thing about the warrior is, for the most part, you won't get too much bad RNG luck, so the warrior will always eat the charge. Even if he does get invulnerability up, it'll be perfectly fine. It won't matter, because he can pop that cooldown and then take the charge. So that's why it's really nice to have a warrior as an off tank. But if you had another paladin, they can eat the first. If they get hit with the heat lightning, then what you can do is actually hit hollow ground and take the charge. But then after that, then you're gonna have to tank swap and stuff like that. Like I said, you just run through the boss, you take the charge hit, and the other tank provokes it. The big thing is, you just have to remember, it's only how do you say, it's, what's the word I'm looking for? It only happens after the second heat lightning. So, anywho, we're gonna back it up just a little bit, because we might as well. Like I said, and for the ad phase, it's pretty simple. Whenever he does electro charge, that means you're going into the ad phase. Let me go ahead and there we go. So he's at 55. You see how he's casting electro charge. That lets you know, you gotta go back into the next ad phase. If you can just nail this part, like I said, scoring, and then start flashes, DPS are going real crazy, but I got my flashes up, and then now my main thing is just to get him positioned, which I did, and then start putting my rotation on the daughter. Daughter's gonna get low, then I'm gonna move to the son. And that's pretty much about it. As long as you got your scoring up right before, and you notice right before, it was almost 55% when you send my scoring, you drop the AoE, you flash, You get your rotations, and it's not too bad. The next part gets a little weird. I've actually started to what I started to do is I started to double flash right here because the ad spawns here. I scorned here, and then I went over here, and then basically I was able to put some damage. Put spirits within first. That was not good because it doesn't generate threats. So what I would recommend is that you flash and then you flash again twice while running towards her. You can target her and shield lob. You see I had a little problem here, but once I finally got him faced, it was not too bad. So the big thing here is that that's your main job if you're picking up the second set of ads, and I tell people to practice this because in all honesty, like, this is probably like the hardest part for the tank. If you can control this mechanic real good with the ads, it makes it a lot easier for your group because a lot of people seem to fail at the ad part picking up both sets. Somebody's DPS in the sun. It kind of sucks, but it's not too big of a deal. We got pretty lucky. People were pretty conscious about where they were standing. But like I said, usually it's scoring, circle scoring. 3 flashes is enough to hold all the aggro and get them in a position. So circle scoring at your position, you flash afterwards, or however you want to do it. And then you just walk backwards. If you don't have circle scoring up, then you just flash. And then you just walk backwards until both of them are stacked on top of each other facing towards you, and that's it. So the ad phase was like probably the toughest phase. Like I said. And what I do now for the second ad set is, like I said, I go to the sun, I double flash, and then I run upwards, shield lob onto the female, and then I drop a circle of scorn on top of her, and then I flash again and then drag them towards the top. You also can tank them on the boss if you wanted for positioning purposes, but I mean that's pretty much about it. So in this last phase, I would normally switch to Sword Oath, but Jiggy Pepper got a real strong warrior, so I'm not going to worry about that. And, I mean, it's the same mechanics before. As you can see, the electric pool outside starts basically enclosing towards the center. And that's your, enrage timer, basically. And that's why we position the boss in the inner circle, so we don't have to worry about that. So the hardest things about this boss, as from a tank perspective, is if you're an off tank, just making sure you always get right in there for the charges. But the charges are not too bad, especially in the second phase, because it does 2 heat lightnings before it does a charge. After the second heat lightning, it's going to immediately do that. As you can see, I have the focus on Jiggy Pepper. That's just Shift F on the off tank to make sure that if he takes an invulnerability and he doesn't have his HD cooldown ability to eat that damage while he charges, then I would need a tank swap. But in this situation, we don't even need to do that. So if you have Warrior Friend, it's fantastic because they can, usually for the most part, they'll always have HD up multiple times. If you're doing with them the Paladin, you will have to do a tank swap because the big thing with the Paladins is our Hollow Ground doesn't reset that fast. But like I said again, for the tank swap, it's just real simple. You just, after the second heat lightning, if you see your off tank that debuff, and you'll see it very easily, it's a giant star in front of their little debuff buff bar. Then you just run through the boss and just make sure you're out in front of it, but not directly inside the circle because once it'll explode. If you anticipate the heat lightning, like see he's about to do heat lightning right now, and it didn't hit the off tank. But see if if he did get hit by it, then I would already been run through. Jiggy Pepper would have took my position and would have taunted. And then that would have been perfectly fine. And that's all you really have to do. So pretty much the rest of the mechanics, there's a lot more things going on besides just the heat lightnings. There's a tether mechanic, but that's something that the DPS have to deal with. As an off tank, you can usually help eat tethers, but usually it's not required, but if you do, it's good. The tethers are basically is lightning that it gets affixed to a person, and as you can see, Jiggy Pepper just did. He went in there and split the damage among some other people. The biggest thing in here is that if you're an off tank, just make sure you stay separated from everybody else. The heat lightning, you don't want to hit nobody else. If you do have a heat lightning and it hits you, and you don't have a cooldown to pop it up to eat the first charge, because when you have heat lightning on you, it makes you get invulnerability up. If you get hit by anything, you'll die. So if that occurs, then you have to pop a cooldown. If you don't have a cooldown, you have to do a tank swap. You just run in front of the boss, you hit provoke, the other tank runs through, takes the hit. You can keep tanking them at that point, or the other tank will just come back and provoke it off you and just resume the battle. So yeah, as long as you got good positioning as an off tank on heat lightning, you don't have nothing to worry about that much. getting good at the charges helps out a lot. Popping a cooldown and being in front of the charges is fine. Sometimes you'll get a charge, and people won't stack up to help you take that damage, and you'll die, and that's not your fault. Sometimes you'll mess up the ads. It's just practice. So I mean, if you can just master the ad phase in phase 1 and phase 2, that is pretty much the hardest part for a tank in my opinion, because everything else is pretty easy. I mean, jumping in front when he charges is pretty straightforward and simple. Well, okay, I gotta be the first person to charge. Other people stack up behind me. That's all you can do. So as long as you're in the front of every single charge, popping your cooldown, that's fine. That's all you can do. Making sure that when the heat lightning cast, make sure you're not around anybody else. That's all you can do. You can't do anything more than that. If somebody else happens to be close to you or run next to you, that's on them. If you die and when they do a charge, because not enough people stacked up, there's nothing else you could do. If you get a heat lightning, the second heat lightning hits you right before a charge and you don't have a cooldown to eat it, and you sit out in front and you have invulnerability up, yeah, that's your fault. But like I said, paladins really only have to really worry about the tank swap. And sometimes you get lucky and you won't even get hit by heat lightning for the whole fight as an off tank. So then it makes it even easier. So as long as you, like I said, focus on the ads, get good at knowing when the charges are going to happen, especially in phase 2, because like I said, it always follows in the second heat of lightning. And I mean, that's pretty much about it. You just position the boss, you got the ads, charge mechanic, watching out for when heat lightning happens, and then swapping the boss. It's pretty straightforward. If you need more information, there's a lot of other guides that explain every single little detail, but that's just from the tank's perspective. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys have a good day.